This is the Fight Fan with your host, Pete Hoffman, and I'm so honored right now to be joined by one of my favorites. Well, I'm a big Rangers fan, so Brandon Dubinsky joins us right now, currently the Columbus Blue Jackets, but thanks so much for hopping on, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Excited to be here, and it's been fun chatting with you the last couple of weeks and getting ready to come on and do the show with you.
So explain to me how you, Brandon Dubinsky, got into MMA and UFC.
It's kind of crazy. I was thinking about that earlier today because I figured that was going to be something that you asked. And, a long time ago when I was a young kid playing in Alaska, I remember us sort of going against our parents' wishes and watching some of those early UFC fights, 1, 2, 3. I mean, some of like the no rules, anything goes type of thing, and being a young kid. So I got into it a little bit then, but then obviously I got to say, I mean, I think it was probably the lead up to McGregor Aldo, that 13-second KO that really got me psyched about the sport. Some of my buddies were into it and they're like, dude, you got to watch this guy. It's pretty amazing. And so I kind of watched that whole lead up and build up into that fight. And then obviously watched the fight. Crazy funny story about that fight and that night. But that's sort of the beginning of when I sort of really got into it. And since then, it's just sort of grown.
Yeah, I feel like I've spoken to a lot of people that say that Conor McGregor era really brought them back. They were fans before, but Conor McGregor really put them on the map. Like me personally speaking, Anderson Silva was one of those guys that really got me into UFC. Yeah. But I mean, I was always a fan before that. Andrei Arlovsky. I just interviewed Rich Franklin last week. He's one of those guys that really got me into it. But Conor McGregor, I feel like, started to bring different fans to the MMA world, which is kind of dope.
Yeah, absolutely. And thinking about it as well, Forrest Griffin was another guy when they started doing
the Ultimate Fighters.
The Ultimate Fighter, those series. So certainly started to get into those as well. So looking back and thinking about it, that was another thing that got me sort of into the UFC as well.
Yeah, they're actually trying to work that back. I'm not sure when they're going to start up. Like they have the Tuesday Night Contender Series, which is kind of dope with Dana White. Excuse me. But they are trying to bring back the Ultimate Fighter, and there was rumors that they was going to do either Colby Covington and Masvidal or something like around that welterweight division, which would be amazing. And you think about Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal, the fact that they were former teammates, all the everything, the backstory behind that would be an incredible resurgence for the Ultimate Fighter.
Absolutely, it'd be epic. I mean, especially they're both such polarizing guys. I know they like to always bring in the politics and bring in their antics and, the shit talking and whatnot. So it's, dude, I mean, if anything else, it's fun to watch those guys fight, but it's also fun to build up in the post-fight shenanigans that both those guys bring. So that would be a hell of a series to watch those two, head-to-head and face off.
Are you more into the talking, the build up to the fight, or are you more like I just want a really good matchup? I really want. Obviously, we want to see a great fight in the end, but sometimes the anticipation, the build up, the storylines, like kind of almost like the WWE mentality, kind of really builds those fights. Whereas, for example, the Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman fight, it was nice, it was a good fight, excited for it, but it wasn't that great lead-in.
Man, I know it's kind of just taking the easy route, but really both. I mean, it's so much fun to watch the build-up and watch these guys prepare, watch these guys talk shit, watch these guys, at the weigh-ins and getting in each other's face and, really engaging the fans and getting the fans, brought in. But then, obviously, and you hear it all the time, once that cage door closes, I mean, it's just say whatever you want. You got to face the other guy and you get that still as a fan, you sort of get that nervous energy just watching these guys fight. So I think they're so much fun, both of them. And every time there's a title fight or a big fight, I sit there with that nervous energy thinking like, what's going to happen? And, at the same time, I want to see like a crazy submission or crazy knockout, but I also don't want, my fight night to be over in the first minute. So I want to see a 25-minute fight too. So it's like you're trying to get all those different, sick aspects of the game, but you can't have it all. So it's as long as they're not getting DQ'd and taking these DQs, obviously I'll take it.
I mean, you talk about the DQ, you talk about the past 2 weekends just being ruined. Like, obviously this past weekend was worse because it was the main fight between Leon Edwards and Bilal Muhammad. The eye poke really, really sucked. It's happened before. It was early enough where they call it even a no contest, not a DQ. But the week prior to, even with Aljamain Sterling and Petr Yan, I mean, that fight was getting deep into it, and that knee comes, and it was clearly illegal. Everyone knew what happened, but what are you supposed to do about it? And how, as you as a fan, we're all let down, but are you torn? Like, should Aljamain Sterling get the title because of that? Should they? Obviously, they're going to be a rematch right away.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I was listening to, at first you're like, no chance you should get the title, especially because I think Petr Yan was winning that fight, and it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But at the same time, I mean, the rules are the rules, and you listen to DC talk about on the air. I mean, it's not Aljamain Sterling's fault that he was sitting on the ground and took an illegal shot, took an illegal knee. And then obviously you listen and you see whether you agree with it or I agree with it or not. He's ahead on one of the judges' scorecards. So who knows? And he still got a round and a half to land that shot. Or Yan makes a mistake and he gets taken down and submitted. You never know. I mean, that's what's so crazy about the MMA is that one guy it just can be over in a flash. One guy can be dominating the fight. And it's one shot. I mean, it's one shot or one mistake or one injury. You never know. It's just so you just got to live with the rules, I guess. I mean, it's a shitty way to watch a fight end, but I mean, rules are rules, and obviously they'll run it back, so that'll make it exciting.
Yeah, they're already trash talking each other, and they're like, I don't know if I want to run it back already. The Twitter world is great, but it's also a cesspool of just nonsense. It's like, we all know you guys are going to be the next in line. You guys are going to run it back. We have to. It has to happen. Yeah. But it's funny enough because I just ironically had a guest on last week, Montel Griffin. He fought Roy Jones Jr. and actually won the WBC light heavyweight bout off of Roy Jones Jr. off of a DQ. Very similar. And he said it was at the end of the 8th round. He kind of was kind of playing possum kind of ducked and was just kind of like trying to wait out the rest of the round so he can finish up the last. He felt he was winning the fight. And I feel kind of Aljo was in that similar situation where it was arguable because I know the judges had the scorecard. It could have gone I think one had it 2-1 at the moment, yeah. Aljo. The other two had a Petr Yan. But I think Aljo was a little tired, trying to like maybe wait it out, get that 5th round. So it was like playing possum, but it's like, what else could he have done? What else could we do? Because it's like it stinks, but it's like you see his strategy is it's almost like the Chris Weidman versus Gegard Mousasi years ago. Chris Weidman playing possum, wants to keep his points on the ground because he doesn't want to take damage, just kind of wants to wait out that round.
It's tough. I mean, definitely. And the other thing is, obviously, knees are legal when the opponent's not down. So, I mean, like, should you allow knees to be legal when the opponent's down? I mean, you allow, kicks, you allow hammer fists, you allow elbows, you allow everything else, but not knees. It's just, again, I don't compete in MMA. I don't want to see anybody obviously get, seriously hurt career-wise, but, it is a bit of a stall tactic, him sitting there with one of his, his knees on the ground, just kind of waiting it out. And, or a lot of times you saw him, on his back with his feet up saying like, come to the ground, inviting him to the ground. And obviously he wants to stand up and strike with him. So there's those moments within the fight where you're like, shit, I mean, knees are legal everywhere else. I mean, rock the guy, dude. He's sitting there, he's waiting it out, just rock him and move on. But, unfortunately, that's not the way it is right now.
It's crazy because we saw this weekend, too, again, Eric Anders with an illegal knee turns into a no contest. And it's funny because if he would have just put the knee to the body, it would have been legal. But he was it was like twice where he kind of went for the head. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, just the guy's got his points on the ground. You have him up against the cage. Go to the body. It'll probably do just as much damage, to be fair. But Brendabinsky, our guest, it's funny because you are in the NHL world. You've had your fair share of fights too. You talked about how getting the momentum, getting that feeling, getting that nervous feeling, watching two fighters fight, step into the cage. Dude, I know that feeling because I feel it every day. I don't want to be near anybody. When I'm watching fights, I'm by myself. I'm like closed off because I get that feeling. You being on the ice though and get to those fights, how is it the same?
No, I mean, not at all. Like, I think it's like in that moment, you're not even thinking about it. It just happens. I wasn't really a guy that went out there and was just like, standing next to a guy and saying, "Hey, buddy, like, you want to do this? You want to drop the gloves?" It was more like a heat of the moment thing. So I think when you're fighting on the ice, or I was fighting on the ice, you just knew it was coming because, something happened on the ice, whether it was a dirty hit or, a dirty play or, somebody's whacking at your goalie or whatever, but it was never something that was ever planned. So you didn't really have a whole lot of time to think about it. And when you're in the moment, it's kind of like driving a car, you're driving a car 150 miles an hour down the highway. If you're driving, you feel like everything's okay because you're in control. You understand what's going on. Whether you win, lose, or draw the fight, you feel like you have some sort of control over it. Where if you're sitting in that passenger seat, you have no control over it, and you're nervous as hell because you're hoping that the guy standing next to you doesn't crash the car. So, that's the way I look at it. Is when you have control over it and you're in the moment, it's a lot easier, and it's kind of wild to think about because I mean I don't know these guys individually, but again, it's just you know what they're going through, and you know what's at stake, and you know that they're either. They, like I said, they're getting, choked out. They're getting knocked out. I know what that feels like. Listen, I got in a fight against Zach Cassian. We were playing in Edmonton a couple of years ago, 4 years ago. And, he just rocked me with a left inside and broke my orbital bone. And I'm just sitting there. And so you just know the dangers of these fights and what can happen. So that's, I think, one of the reasons also you get that little bit of that nervous energy.
Yeah. Who in the NHL did you really want to get a fight with, and just like you never had that opportunity? I know. I saw the Sidney Crosby fight. We were all, as Ranger fans, very happy about that. That we were applauding. But like, was there somebody else besides Sidney that you really wanted to like get into a fight with?
Not really. I mean, I think I might be the only guy that has Ovechkin and Crosby on the resume. So, not really, dude. I didn't really like to fight. I mean, I did it because I think. There was times when I felt like I needed to for the team or whatnot, or like I said, one of my teammates got put in a vulnerable position and I didn't like it, or a momentum type of thing. But no, man, I'm not a big, huge fan of getting punched in the face. So, and I had my fair share, but I didn't. It was just okay. I didn't. I lost my fair share too. So it wasn't something that I loved and looked forward to.
Talking about, being a good teammate, you're looking out for your teammates. Obviously, you spent your time with the Rangers. Your goaltender, Henrik Lundqvist, just had a major heart surgery this past year and had to sit out. Have you been in touch with him at all? I mean, we've seen some videos that he's put out. He seems like he's incredible. He's back in New York. He seems like he's running a lot, which is really good. But have you spoken to him at all?
I have not actually spoken with him, but obviously – when I found that news out, I was quite surprised because obviously when I played with him for all those years, nothing like that ever got brought up. So I was really surprised that, something like that ended up popping up, but happy that we're so lucky that we have these, we get these, tests and these scans and these EKGs and everything. And the NHL and the Players Association really take care of us and making sure we're getting these things on a regular basis, because without that, I don't think you find something like that, especially with Henrik, and who knows what happens if you don't find that. So, certainly was concerned for him, and happy to see he's doing well. And, again, it just seeing him skating now and, seeing the Caps GM come out and say, I wouldn't plan on it, but I wouldn't rule out, this guy making a comeback and playing. Again, just speaks to how competitive and how good he is, and the reason he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, and the reason 30 is going to be in the rafters at Madison Square Garden is just, that determination and that fight that he has in him. And I think that's showing through again, on a different level, which is pretty amazing.
You talk about your being teammates with Henrik Lundqvist, seeing that side of it, but you also were part of some really special teams. Unfortunately, you got traded before you were able to make it to the Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
But you were a fan favorite. I mean, I remember the day when you got traded. I was furious. Like, I don't care who we're getting back. Like, you were the guy. Like, no, this is untouchable. You being so close to getting deep into the playoffs, but never really getting there to the Stanley Cup. How did you feel? Were you a little upset that you weren't able to get there with the Rangers?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was pissed off. I mean, I remember sitting there wondering where I was going, first of all, going to Columbus, but it turned out to be a wonderful place in my home. But, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the year before I got traded, we lose to the Devils in the conference finals. In a series I think we should have won. Who knows what happens against LA in the finals if we get there. But again, we spent a lot of years building that team, and we had a good core. So to get traded right then and there from, obviously, I think Vancouver ended up winning the President's Trophy because we blew the last 3 games of the season. We lost the last 3 games of the season or something.
Right.
But from being the top team in the league all season long to getting traded to the worst team, obviously that was in itself devastating. But I think more importantly, just not having a chance to sort of have an unfinished business because in New York, I think was tough. And one of the funny things that comes to mind is I think after I got traded, I let out my frustration. I think there was an article, I had mentioned that I got traded for a new shiny toy, and so I was obviously pretty pissed off that I had gotten traded at the time. But it's they obviously got to the final, didn't get it done, but yeah, I felt like there's still a little bit of piece that little bit of unfinished business and a piece that sort of never got written fully in New York for me.
I agree. And it's weird because you go to Columbus and your coach follows you not too long after that. I mean, how was it playing for John Tortorella? Was that comfortable when he came back? Did you like that?
It was we've had our ups and downs. It was wonderful when he first came to New York, and sort of by the end, I was kind of like, all right, that had sort of run its course a little bit. I think we were at a little bit of, at odds with each other a little bit when I got traded. Had a fresh start with Todd Richards in Columbus, and then Torts comes back. Again, I think it was sort of like, it was really good at the beginning, but sort of towards the, the last few years that I actually played in Columbus, for whatever reason, whether it was me not sort of getting older and not playing as well, or him just wanting to play the younger guys, and sort of, everything sort of changed a little bit. And, again, I think we were at each other a little bit over my role and my ice time and stuff like that. But I also, I think it goes back to the fact that we're both competitive guys. Obviously, I wanted to be on the ice playing 20 minutes a night, and I was only playing, 10 or 11 minutes a night. So just having that competitiveness in me, obviously I wanted more than I was getting. So naturally, the coach is the one making those decisions. So, it can make that relationship rocky a little bit. But at the end of the day, listen, I'm proud of the way that my career went, from start to the finish. And obviously he was a big part of that and played a huge role in that because we were together for so many years, both in New York and Columbus. So, like I said, I'm happy with the way things went.
I agree. Listen, I understand. I have GMs, I have bosses. I understand that sometimes you have your issues with them. You have different ways you want it to go, and they tell you what to do anyway. So I totally get that. But final hockey question, I promise you this, but I have to ask because Artemi Panarin, his whole situation the past almost it's been a month, I think, almost now. I know it's at least 2 or 3 weeks here. Have you spoken to him at all? I mean, that's scary. That's a scary situation with him and his family. Were you very close when you were on the team?
No, I wasn't. And, he's a guy, he's a pretty quiet guy. He keeps to himself a lot. And we were both in very different, I think, places. He had a girlfriend, he lived downtown Columbus. I got 3 boys, I live out in the suburbs. Life's just a little bit different, but obviously he was a hell of a player and a hell of a teammate, great guy. I hadn't had a chance to talk to him. But wild. I knew, before this, there had been some controversy a little bit in the past with the political stuff and with Putin and all that stuff. But really serious allegations. I can't speak to whether they're true or not. Obviously, I don't know, but really hard for me to see something like that being true, just knowing him and his personality. He's a pretty quiet guy. He's a guy that keeps to himself. He's the type of guy, I don't want to call him a nerd because he's not a nerd, but, literally we would go on the road and he would like go find like the Amazon store or the bookstore, and he'd be outside sitting out, reading a book and stuff like that. So I just can't see him being, a violent guy, and especially towards females. So, I was a little bit surprised seeing that, and it was nice to see some of his other teammates, in the KHL that year come out and say, listen, I don't think that this is true. We would have known about it. So some serious allegations and seemingly unfair at this point, obviously, without, having any concrete proof or evidence. So I just have a hard time seeing him doing something like that. But nice to see him back. I did watch the game the other night, the 4-0 game against the Bees, and the Rangers were looking good. So happy to see him back. Hell of a pass he made on that goal with Strome. So it's fun to see him back, and the Rangers obviously need him big time. So yeah.
It's funny you said he's not a nerd, but he kind of has nerdy personality traits. But let me ask you a question.
And he needs a haircut too. He needs to get his haircut. Like, I don't know what he's been doing. He's been growing that hair out for a while since I think he was in Columbus. He's gonna cut that hair.
I love the do, man. Listen. Let it grow. Let it flow. If it's working, maybe that's like his Achilles heel. He needs the hair. But let me ask you a question, because take me through some of the players that you've been through. Are there many guys who are there that are like nerdy, or that like are just dive into the game, and like talent takes you so far, but you really have to be a student of the game too. Hockey, whether it's MMA, hockey, whatever, you have to really be invested in it.
Yeah, it's I think first of all, they're all nerds now. I mean, all the guys that are playing are nerds now. We're playing video games all the time, talking about video games, going to dinner. I mean, it's just changed a lot. Everything's sort of changed a lot. The topic of conversation went from a lot of different, I think, more intellectual, real life type of things to who is really good players at Fortnite and Call of Duty and some of these other games. So I think they're all a little bit nerdy now. But all things considered, yeah, I mean, everything's changed. I mean, you just look at the game itself, and like, they brought in this whole like analytics thing, and like they brought in, they got iPads on the bench now, and like I would sometimes get pissed off sitting in the locker room. Oh, where the hell is everyone? And like half the guys would literally be in the lounge watching, some of their shifts from the previous period, inside the game itself. And I'm like, I mean, guys, just go back in your mind in that shift. You need to be sitting there watching it. It wasn't, for me, it was always easy to know if I was playing good or playing like shit, or if I had a couple good shifts and a couple bad shifts or whatever. But yeah, I mean, so again, it's just another whole thing with the new culture of the NHL. Every single guy, has the iPads and, has access to the software, so that the coaches, or the video coach, I should say, is uploading, every single shift of a player's, games up onto, an iPad for them, emailing them out. If you're a center iceman, you're getting, face-offs. You're getting to watch face-offs from the other team. If you're a shootout guy, you're watching the opposing goaltender that you're coming up. You're watching some of his shootouts and, some of the goals that he let in, some of the tendencies. As a goaltender, I'm sure you're watching shooters or whatnot with the goalie coach. So, yeah, there's just so much more of an emphasis on that. That's being a study of the game and being a student of the game. And obviously, it's in every sport now. But if it's helping guys, then why wouldn't you? Anything you can do to get a competitive edge. Especially with the talent level and the ability that every guy possesses in the NHL, you should be doing it and taking that extra time. And I think these guys are. It's just so much different from like my early years in the NHL, where like you had just two good lines. You had one shitty line that literally couldn't really play, but they were just mean and tough and scary, and then one that was just kind of just okay and now all four lines, every player's good. Every player can play seriously up, seemingly up and down through the lineup, through the first line to the fourth line and everywhere in between, because you're not having those roster spots taken up by, some of the shadier players that used to play. And, like I said, everyone's good. So anything you can do to get that competitive edge is important. And I think you're seeing a lot of that these days.
Yeah, no, I do notice the enforcers are basically the role is pretty much obsolete at the moment. I mean, and again, like as a hockey fan, you kind of look forward to those fights. You like to see the brawls, you like to see all that stuff happening. But again, everyone has to be so talented. Everyone has to be able to score, at any time. So I definitely noticed the difference. As far as the MMA world, though, like you see a lot of these well-rounded fighters and stuff like that. What type of fighter do you particularly like to see out there? Do you want to see someone that's just going to go out there and brawl, or do you want to see a chess match?
I like the guys that just get out there and swing them. I mean, the strikers. I like the fast pace, the fury. It's tough. I'll tell you this much. Like I think one of the things that I get really frustrated about is when you have you have a grappler versus a striker. And it either ends up one way or another. Like this one, the grappler just, he walks into a couple punches there early, or vice versa. The grappler takes the guy down 11 times, and he's just literally smothering him on the ground.
Right.
Now, I mean, I'll say it's a little bit different. Like if you're, Blachowicz the other day. I mean, listen, that was kind of fun to watch. But I would say, when there's a serious mismatch and you're literally talking about a grappler versus a striker, and then that's it, not a really well-rounded fighter as obviously, Adesanya and Blachowicz are, because they're obviously both champions. I would say that's sort of my least favorite thing. My most favorite would be, getting two strikers that get out there, and especially guys that can throw the kicks. That's always fun to watch, dude. I always think it's so badass when a guy gets when a fight gets finished by a leg kick, because everyone's like, dude, you just got kicked in the leg. I mean, how bad could that be? And then you see these guys' legs or
their welts,
body,
yeah.
And how they can't even walk after the fight. Whether it's so yeah, there's a lot to love about it, but I would say definitely I like the strikers, man.
The calf kicks, man, that is a huge part of the game these days. And that's what happened with Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor. It's funny because I keep on most of the guests I have on are huge Conor McGregor fans. I had Michael Lorenzen on of the Cincinnati Reds, and he sent me a quote from someone in Conor's camp, basically how he's going to improve versus Dustin versus next fight. And when me and Michael were talking, he was like, I totally believe that he'll be able to make the adjustments going into the next fight versus Dustin Poirier. And that's what I feel like. He was away from the game so long. He's been focusing on boxing, but that's what Conor can bring to the table. I don't think every single fighter can do that. I don't think every single fighter can face a Nate Diaz twice and be able to beat him the second time. I think that Conor, though, is that's to do it.
No, I agree. I mean, listen, he, champ, obviously, when he was coming up, he looked literally unstoppable. I mean, I would say, I think we talked on the phone the other day, last week. The only thing that can get in the way, I think, really is himself and how much he wants to put into the game and how much he actually wants to train. And if he does want to, improve his game all around, I think he's the type of person that's, he'll be his own worst enemy. And obviously, if he wants it bad enough, he's the type of guy that'll also be able to go in there and get it done, whatever he wants to do, because that was the type of person that he was. But, when you're successful and you got a lot of money and you're rolling up to the arena, in a train of Rolls Royces and whatnot, and you're making a few $1 million, in an MMA fight, obviously he doesn't want to lose, but, it's sort of, I question a little bit, how much time, he spent focused on, was he, eating, breathing, sleeping, Dustin Poirier, or was he just, training and doing that stuff, when it was convenient for him? And obviously his camp's always going to say the right things. Always going to say, like, this is the best version of Conor McGregor. This is, he's in the best shape of his life. He's got a full gas tank these days. It's not like the old Conor McGregor where he'd say he'd get gassed out in the later rounds and whatnot. This is the best version of himself. And then, you go in and see a second round, see him get knocked out in the second round with or without the leg kicks. So again, I think, he's going to he'll dictate what happens in the rest of his career. I think if he wants to, like you said, I think his skill set's strong enough, and I think he's good enough that he'll, he'll go out there and win again on a regular basis. Or he won't, because he's just too focused on the rest of, his life and his branding, his whiskey, proper 12, which I've never tried it, but I've heard some mixed reviews anyway.
Let me put it this way. It's smooth. I mean, however you like your whiskey, it's smooth. I mean, I don't know if you're a smooth guy, then yeah, it goes down easy. But if you want a little bit more bite to it, if you want something else, I'm not trying to knock it. Everyone has their own taste. Dude, I've been drinking. I was trying to push not too long ago the peanut butter whiskey. So I'm all over the place with my whiskeys. But proper 12 is not the highest on my list. Let's put it that way.
That's the politically correct way of answering the question. Might I add, without that DQ, I would have been like 12 out of 15 on my picks.
I know, dude. You were killing it.
Come on.
You were killing. I couldn't believe it. I looked back and go, holy smokes, dude. Is that now, are you that good with picks normally or no?
Dude, no. I mean, who knows? Who knows? Obviously, the pay-per-views are easier to pick because you know all the fighters, and like, listen, I watch a lot of the fight nights and whatnot. I'm that into it. I don't just watch the big pay-per-views and stuff, but some of these fighters, you just don't know a whole lot about, because they're up and coming. There's their first fight in the UFC, third fight, second fight, something like that. So, dude, I don't know, man. I just got hot. I was like, I was pissed off when it all ended. I'm like, dude, now I'm like 11 out of 15 because I lost at a DQ. That's just bullshit.
I know. So many people were upset by that too. Like, I got someone was like, you should squash it. DQ shouldn't count. I'm like, listen. What does Vegas say? What does Vegas say?
Hey, I know who was feeling good about it was you.
Yes.
You were feeling good about it.
Yes, I was.
Sterling. Yeah, I was looking at your picture, that big heart around it. You're feeling real good about it.
I don't listen. He's a Long Island guy too, so like I feel connected to him. I spoke to him a few times. I like his style. I thought Petr Yan was gonna kind of die down towards the later rounds, but he was looking super good, dude. He's the goods. He is the goods. He's able to strike. He was able to. The takedown defense was superb. He's legit, man. Let me tell you that much.
Yeah, that was serious. But Sterling also, like, he was pressuring hard. Like, he was pressuring heavy for those first three rounds. So, easy to see why it's, he had a 2-1 on one of the judges' scorecards, because, there was times I thought Yan was going to kill him, frankly. I mean, like, not that I'm not a Sterling fan, but I thought it wasn't even going to be close. But I was surprised, man. He kept coming forward. He came forward for 15 minutes, and obviously I think he started gassing a little bit in that fourth round. But, yeah, man, I was pretty impressed by it. I think, the next one's going to be even better too. Obviously, now these guys have been in there. They've felt each other's power. They felt each other's pressure and whatnot. I mean, I'm pretty jacked up, pretty stoked for the next one.
No question. Listen, Brandon, we're almost out of time. So is there anything else you want to promote? Anything that you want to promote yourself?
No, I'm good, man. I mean, I'll look forward to coming back on here and chat with you some more. This is fun. I love the MMA. It's probably, my favorite sport right now, to follow, to watch. Like I said, I watch not just the big matches. I watch the fight nights. I watch the prelims, the early prelims. I will say this: when I went to that McGregor Cowboy fight, in January, before that pandemic happened and everything, it's just so much different than ever going to a boxing match, where like you literally don't go until the fight. I mean, like, you don't walk into the boxing match until the main events. It's just absolutely empty. But I'm a big fan, man. It's fun. We went in and watched 4 or 5 of the fights at the T-Mobile before the main event. So it's sweet talking with you about this stuff. It's awesome.
Bye.